What's going on, everybody? Kenny Conklin here from HobbyLinkInternational.com. Welcome to another Darth Talon video. We'll get to the video in a second, but I just want to update you on something. The last video, or 2 videos ago, I told you we're going to have our YouTube membership and Patreon videos locked behind those walls where only paid members can see them. But then I was thinking, why are people going to join if they don't know what the videos are about? So the Darth Talon build, I'm going to have free on Patreon and free on YouTube for now. You'll get to see them. This way you know what's going to come up for paid members. You'll see everything that I'm doing. You'll see the videos, and then you can make a decision if these are the type of videos you want to see, and that if you want to help support the channel. This way we can, like I said in the last video, get more equipment, tools, and all that other good stuff to keep the channel up and running. So if you want, subscribe here, subscribe on Patreon. You're going to see the whole Darth Talon build, nuts to bolts, every single thing I do. And then after that, the next one will be behind the walls for our paid members. Also on Patreons and YouTube, we'll have polls on what you want to see me build, and whatever you guys vote on, we'll be doing that also. And also we'll have some cool stuff coming up because we do have our shop where you can buy 3D prints from us. We've got a couple coming up in January, and we're also going to have our own STLs made, and we're going to have votes on those too, which ones you would like to see. So enough rambling out of me. Enjoy the content, and I hope you do come join the memberships either on YouTube or on Patreon to help support the channel. Now let's get over to Darth Talon's base. Let's get back to working on Darth Talon's base, but first I want to show you this new tool I got for Christmas. It's the Larity Nail Dust Collector. It's great. You just go over it with your piece while you're cutting resin. It sucks in all the dust. It has 3 settings, a low, medium, and high, and we won't have the dust going everywhere while we're making cuts. I'll put a link in the description below to where you can find the Larity. Right now I have the machine on low. This way we're going to cut around all these circles and pop out the disc. Here you can see me cutting. Hopefully you can see the dust going into the machine itself. If you can't, I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you can see in the center where that dust is, and then I'll speed up the whole process so you don't have to sit here for a while watching me cut it. This is definitely a great little tool. All the resin went right here in the center and nowhere else. And let's finish cutting up this bottom disc. This way we could get that off, get those supports out, and start working on the plug and the on-off switch. Next up, what I'm going to do is take this basswood, basswood, balsa wood, whatever it is, and I'm going to use it for the bottom of the base. I'm just going to flip it over, and we're going to make a template. I'm going to take my pencil. I'm going to trace around the edge. This way I get the perfect circle, which it ends up not actually being a perfect circle. Now that I have my circle, I need to find the center point. I made the mistake. I shouldn't have taken the thing off because it doesn't line up the greatest. So what I'm going to use is my needle file over here, which has a nice point. I'm just going to line this up best I can because for some reason it's just not a perfect circle. Once I cut it, I can figure out what angle's what. And then I'm just going to take the little needle file that I have that's got a point on it, and I'm going to shove it right down the center. And I didn't have my little tack hammer around with me, so I'm trying to push it into the wood. I'm just going to grab my razor saw, and I'm going to use that as a hammer, and I'm going to tap this down. This way I get the point in there and I know where the exact center of this is so I can cut out the circle, and I'm going to use a special tool for that. Just marking it a little better because it wasn't really that deep. I want to make sure I know where that center is so I can pop a little hole in that later on. So how I'm going to cut this out, I got a Dremel circle cutter. You just put the pin in the middle and you go right around and it'll pop that circle out. Now I could get back to cutting out the base, because if I would have cut it out before, I would have knocked out the centerpiece, or you'll see I wouldn't have knocked out the centerpiece. It wouldn't have been flat, and if it's not flat, then I might have made a mistake and stuff like that. So you'll see what I do next. And I am really loving this dust collector. It is just pulling everything in without a problem. You can see there's no dust flying up towards the camera or the sides or anything like that. So it's well worth the purchase. Just giving it a little tap to try to get rid of most of that dust in there, because there will be some residual dust that you got to be careful of. And now here's my knucklehead move. I'm trying to pull this thing out and I forgot the center post is in there. I'm struggling with it, like, why is this thing not coming out? I'm thinking something's stuck. And finally, bonehead me, I get my Dremel back out and I go back in there and I'm cutting out that inner circle to get to the post. Now the bottom plate easily comes off and you can see all of the left-in supports. Now when you do a build with a base, if you could get those supports out, get them out, because you never know if that resin is fully cured or something may be dripping in there. You want it as clean as possible. So with my builds, I always try to rip out the inner supports. Now to start cleaning up this base some, I have a little deviation there. I have to get rid of support marks here, and we got to work on those holes, make sure they're all good. And back here, I still have support marks that I have to take care of. For some of the softer things to clean up, I'm going to use my Mr. Hobby G-Tool Polisher Pro. It's not as fast as the Pro 3, which I'll show you in a second, and it takes things down nice and smooth. This is the Mr. Hobby Mr. G-Tool Polisher Pro Polisher 3. This is a plug-in device and it has more power than the little G-Tool that I showed you. The heads are different. You can put different heads on there for different scenarios, and there are different grits. But this guy runs fast. I have 180 grit on here and it takes things down very, very quickly. So you have to be careful not to run through detail or anything like that with this. This I'm probably just going to use for bigger areas that I need to take down support marks. I'm not going to use it in very tight detailed areas. Those areas I'm going to go in by hand or use the Mr. Polisher. Now that I have the bulk of it off with that 180 grit, I'm going to move over to my Mr. G tool. I think I have 800 grit on here to smooth out all the scratch marks from the 180. This one does a really nice job of polishing. Now that I got those marks done, it's time to try to test fit these and see if they fit. Gonna put the little circle guy in here, but alas, he does not fit. So I should have probably made that 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters bigger and he would have slid in there. I'll just take the Dremel, widen the hole, and push it in. I just put my favorite diamond point drill bit onto the Dremel and I'm just taking down some layers by layer to make it a little bit bigger, and then I'll test fit the piece again. After slowly opening it up, it took me a couple tries testing it out, making sure it would fit. I finally got it here. I got it in here. It's a little bit of a snug fit, but pushing it in pretty hard, that sucker will finally pop in there, and I'm able to push it out from the back. This way I can do the painting of the base without worrying about painting over the power. Now that I got the power in there, I have to do the on-off switch, and like you guys seen I did, it was 2 circles, so I have to do something to get this to a rectangle. What I did was I just put the piece on there, I took my pencil and I traced around where the edging of the little on-off switch is. This way I could get my files in there and then I could cut it open to the right dimensions. Before I get in there with my needle files though, what I'm doing is I'm taking my Dremel and getting as close as I can to those pencil marks. This way I don't have to get in there so much with the files because it'll take me forever to do it by hand. So get close, don't go over your marks, and do it by hand afterward. Now that the Dremel is done, I'm going in with my needle files. This is a flat file, and I also use the triangle file. If you don't have a triangle file, it usually comes in the 4-pack. One is round, one is flat, one is kind of like an oval shape, and then you got the triangle with 3 edges on it. That one really helps out in the corners. But be careful with that one because it is pretty sharp on the corners and can dig a corner very quickly. That was 5 minutes of filing done in 20 seconds, but I finally got it. I got it to push in, but I don't want to push this one all the way in because those flanges on the side will lock in and I won't be able to get it out. But at least we know we have an on-off switch that will work. Our power and on-off side by side, I made them a little too close. The power, I will have to fill a little bit of a gap around the edge, but that's no big deal. This is all in the back of the base, so I'm not too worried about that. Next up, let's take care of this one pinhole I found. I'm going to just use a little Bondo and spread it on there. If you ever buy 3D prints, you are going to find pinholes. They're not perfect, but they are really cool models. So I'm just spreading it on there, getting it really thin because I don't need a lot on. Now that the Bondo is dry, we go back to the Mr. G Tool Polisher Pro, get that off, and have things nice and smooth. That dirty little pinhole is gone. Now we can move over to priming. Because I don't have Monument Hobbies black primer yet, I'm going with my usual Mr. Surfacer 1000. And here's the piece nice and wet, and of course it has dust in it because I don't have a proper spray booth. One day I'll get one of those. We're gonna let this guy dry up nice and solid, and then we're gonna use probably Tamiya black. I would use Monument Hobbies coal black, but it's just not black enough. I shall see you guys in the next video.